we go, okay.
Sorry, looks like the recording started only now, but carry on, Navya.
No problem.
We are early and we started early. Carry on. Yeah.
No worries. Okay. Well, those who joined the recording missed some amazing statements about what it means to be a woman in technology. So maybe I'll just quickly reiterate that we all feel blessed. We all feel excited about the impact that we can have, and everyone on this call has had an incredible impact in this space. And we all feel excited about the possibilities that it offers, and we hope that we can encourage more women to pursue a career in this space. So that was just a very quick summary of what everyone said. But yeah, going back to the question that I was asking. So at the entry level, we actually see a lot of women who come into the tech industry, but we see a sharp drop off as we continue down the path of technical roles, especially, as we get to the more senior level technical roles. And everyone on this call is actually kind of the exception. Unfortunately, you are all extremely accomplished women in tech, but you're the exception and not the rule. So I'd like to know, and I want to ask this question to Lalitha first, because I think, you actually mentioned this to me when we were talking, that you have seen this phenomenon happen. So I want to ask you, why do you think that is? What are the factors that are leading to this attrition rate of women in technology?
Yeah, I think that's so true on what you mentioned, right? I've been in this industry for 26 years, and definitely one very positive change is the entry level. The representation of women in the entry level. As I talk representing Cerner India here, we have more than 50% entry level associates. We call them as associates and not employees, are all women, right? It's phenomenal. It's fantastic to see more than 50% being women. But as we see, as they grow up in the ladder, they're just depleting population, and there are very few left in the executive senior leadership levels. And I think, in my view, these are broadly due to two major factors. One I would categorize as internal and another as external, right? And I think the more important factor is internal. And what I mean by internal is it's all self-made, right? It's within us. It's within the women, the inhibitions that is blocking them to go ahead, right? And it's probably because of the upbringing or the societal mindset or the stereotyping. Somewhere, I think that there's still a lot of boundaries that women tend to draw around. Okay, this is all that I can do. This is the kind of role that I will get into. So these are all, I think, a lot of internal inhibitors which one needs to, I think, overcome, right? And then the external factors are, I would say, again, two kinds. The one is the family pressures, right? The other is the work environment itself. So these are external to the women, but they are also impacting their career growth. When I say family pressure, it starts off as soon as the woman decides to get married. Typically in India, at least, it's that the woman moves or relocates to the venue of or the city of the spouse. So that breaks the career. And when they decide to raise a family, then again, it's a woman who takes a break, and she has to also handle a lot more responsibilities. And not everyone is privileged to have the support system and the ecosystem within the family, right? So that comes again as an impediment. And then coming to the work environment itself, I think there's still a lot of biases that comes into play, and presumptions made by these biases that, hey, if there's an important challenging opportunity, they tend to look at, hey, this guy can stretch and he will do more work, he will stay overnight and he will work longer hours, let's give it to him than to a woman. So the whole environment many times at the workplace is not conducive, right? I think these are the broad factors. But that said, I don't want to stop at that. I think there's a lot of progress done across companies on how to overcome that. And I just want to share a few examples from Cerner. So we've had a very focused program on grooming women to leadership positions. We call it as Women in Leadership Program, where we've handpicked high-performing, and also high potential women associates and group them into the leadership positions. And to make sure that we have a good steady pipeline for that, what we've gone and done next is to actually, plug the leak in the pipeline. So because always pipeline matters, right? You don't just work on the current set, but you constantly build the pipeline. So we've had several programs to cut the leak in the pipeline, which typically happens around the maternity leave that women take. So we have supported system, mentoring, network, which helps them to ease back into work and not quit when they take an ML. And also we kind of feed into the pipeline and strengthen it with very young women, right? As soon as they come in 2-3 years in the system, we identify those young minds with the fire in the belly and work on them. We put them through another Women in Leadership program, which is meant for younger engineers, and then kind of strengthen the pipeline. I think all of these has helped essentially to develop and retain the women talent in the IT industry. I don't think we are at a stage of any problem with attract. I think we are able to attract women into the IT industry. It's more of, I think, the develop and retain part. If we do well, I think we can definitely overcome those challenges. That's
absolutely
my thoughts. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Lalita. And all of you have had a lot of experience in building teams, and I'm sure that you've met many women in your careers that have ascended to those leadership positions and kind of, transcended this boundary that we're talking about. Can any of you tell me, is there something that you notice that those women have in common? Is there some quality that allows them to kind of transcend this barrier, or is it just luck or talent? Like what is it that makes it, that made you all able to transcend this boundary, and that makes some women able to, reach past some of these challenges?
One of the things that I have come across, and this is an interesting statistic that I heard from one of the Indian Institute of Management, professors, that if a woman's career identity is formed pretty strongly by the age of, say, 26 or so, it's likely that she will find her way forward in terms of persevering, overcoming the obstacles, finding herself the support system, and whatever else it takes to further her career. If that doesn't happen, then they will let every other identity take over, in terms of, all the other roles that a woman would play anyway, right? So you would play those roles anyway, but if you have that strong career identity, you will persevere. So I have found that the women that persevere, have the determination and focus, are more likely to, continue on that path and take the breaks, as required during their, life stages, but they will always find a way to come back. That this is just my 2 cents on that topic.
Absolutely. That's very interesting. And I've noticed that something that has come up in my career, I'm very lucky right now to work in an organization that employs a lot of women in leadership positions. And what I've noticed is that a driving factor of that is that the leadership of our organization is a woman. We have a woman who leads our organization, and it is true to a large extent that women hire women, right? There's some amount of, I don't think it's bias. I think it's actually the overcoming of bias in this situation where we look for those talented women to hire. So Sita, can you tell me, what do you look for when you're hiring?
So, one of the things is you look for women. Some of this journey starts very early, like we are high achiever women, or we're the women that want to go and get, as girls, we learn to be like high achievers, or we have models that make us say we are going to do it, right? So you try to look for people who have that drive, that zest, that we are going to be successful, right? It is like this intensity they get through school, through college, and then they bring forward in the workforce also. So you try to find those people who really have a passion for what they do and want to succeed in this area. So I think that is a very important factor that plays into women that continue in a success path in the IT field and stay true to themselves. I mean, there are the social economic things that we can look at also, but I think that's an important factor.
Yeah, definitely. I think well said, Sita. I just wanted to add one point to that, Navya, that one thing I look for when I'm hiring is the agility. The agility to learn, agility to bend their ways, right? And not being very fixed. Being flexible, I think, is one important thing that I look for.
Yeah, see, another thing that I look for when hiring, what I ask the girls is, especially if they're married, who manages the finances in the house? Who's responsible for ensuring that there's food on the table? And or if they tell me that it's my husband, I quickly ask them, aren't you equally responsible? So you have to take equal responsibility at home for you to be able to have that same mindset in the workplace and, show the same ownership. So this is something that I always ascertain with the women that I'm hiring.
What
That's
I-
very interesting, Anita. Would you say that, when you were early in your career, did anyone ask you those kinds of questions, and what kind of impact did that have on you?
For me, I think it came by default that I had to take the ownership of being the responsible person at home. Because I was forced into the situation when I lost my father when I was very young. And being the older child in the house, I had to assume the responsibility, of bringing in that financial security. So, that is probably something that, kept me on my job and kind of got me into a situation where I didn't have a choice not to work. Okay, and to a certain extent, I think it did help me, when I had my children, and this choice between being a stay-at-home mom and having to continue working. Honestly, I didn't have a choice, so I had to continue working. And I think today, not having the choice is something that has helped probably a lot of us continue in the workplace and grow in the workplace. So nobody asked me those questions, when I joined, but then, looking back, I always used to mentor the women in my team and tell them that, yes, the decision is yours. You have to, decide that you need to continue working and get help. Incidentally, I come from a family where all my aunts and, are all working. We're all working, and they were teachers. So my grandparents believed that even women need to be financially independent. And I think, that trend continued.
Absolutely. It sounds like even though nobody asked you that question, really life asked you that question, right?
Yes.
You were put into that situation, and it's really inspiring to see, women like you and all of you kind of look past just the circumstances of your life and really go to achieve something beyond that. And I think something that's really interesting about everyone on this call is that all of you in your bios and when we talked, you talked about how you make an impact, how you make a difference, right? It doesn't stop at how do I do my job and how do I do my job well. It transcends that. It's more about how do I have an impact on the world around me. And what I'm hearing in all of your answers now is that drive for that impact is really what keeps some women going in this field. And I think we should all take a moment to say, many of you have children, many of you have responsibilities and families outside of the workplace. It is not that you have to choose, right? You don't have to be one or the other. You can have both. And I think it's really amazing to see you all successfully have both of those things.
Yeah. So I think learning the life balance, you bring a very good point, is extremely important for women in IT. And I think I would like to say it's a little bit easier now for women. When we started off, I was like one of the 5,000 men around me in the IT mathematical world. So that was a challenge. That was being fearless, to go up to them and give you a piece of your mind. But I think over time, you're so right. With women, one of the challenges really is how do we balance our family life, bring up the kids the best way that we have been taught to bring up kids, and be able to manage this zest for us to continue with the technology that we really want, that we love and we want to do.
Absolutely. Lalitha, I want to go back to something that you said at the beginning and tie it to what Sita is saying now, where you mentioned that many times men are looked to because they're the ones that will stay late and keep going and keep doing this work, right? Do you think that that is a healthy environment to foster at work? Like, do you think that you are required as a person who is working at a software company or an IT company to be that person that is the last to leave and the first to come in? Or is there a way to balance that and say, hey, I can still be the most productive player on my team and I can still bring my energy to my job every day, but I don't need to be the last one out of the office.
Yep, definitely. I don't think the number of hours that one puts in or the duration that they're in office is any indication of the productivity at all. At all. I think it's I was giving an example of how there seems to be assumptions made, right? Like I'll share my own example. I took a break in my career in my first job, which was with Siemens. That was about 2 years, right? And when I came back to work, there were certain assumptions made that, oh, she's come back to work, she still has a young child, but I was ready to go, right? I asked for the complex projects and so on, but they weren't coming my way at all. And because they said, you're going to be working only from this time to this time, right? Like there were already assumptions being made about what is it that I'll be wanting to do, or how will my productivity be, right? So those are the typical challenges. And of course, I said, like, no, I'm here. I'm back from my break. I took a 2 years break for a reason. Now I'm back and I'm all ready to go. I'm ready to take up the challenges. I had to reiterate and clear those assumptions and presumptions and then take on something. And I was flexible to move around and take a new project, prove myself and the ecosystem there. And that brought in, next bigger challenges and so on. So I don't think just burning the midnight oil is any indication. I think we all talk about working smart, right? I think that is what I think is most important, and how efficient are we, and not just necessarily showing that we're working later, sending mails in the midnight. No, I don't think so.
Absolutely. I always thought it was funny that an industry that values efficiency so much is still falling into the trap of thinking that, hours worked means increased output. So that very well stated, Lalitha. Thank you. I want to switch tracks a little bit. We've been talking about attrition when it comes to, entry level versus higher up in the organization, but I also want to talk about a different kind of attrition. And Amita, I want to have your thoughts on this question first, because you are a person who still works in a technical role. And I think what we see often is women who come into technical roles often transition into other types of roles, whether that's management or program management or operations, whatever it might be, right? There's some kind of transition that happens after that entry level away from that individual contributor technical type of role. So can you talk a little bit about your experience and what you've seen in that space?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And I still struggle, trying to get the right, balance in my own team of solution architects in terms of having the right, gender diversity, right? But Navya, sometimes I feel the reason for that is, people have to see that there are rewards and there are challenges, and there are opportunities for advancement on the technical side as well. People should not think that the only way you can advance in your career is, to move into managerial, operational, or other areas. And for that, we need to have an environment that, fosters, technical roles and, kind of has role models that one can look up to. Like, you have several, distinguished engineers, fellows, and others that come from the technology space, So I think if more women can start seeing the opportunities that there are on this side, and that it is not going to be something that they will have to compromise with in terms of, the word that was used earlier, right, in terms of work-life balance. Because I will admit, to stay on a technology path, you have to have that attitude of continuous learning, because the industry is changing so fast, the technology advancements are so fast, you have to constantly keep pace and keep yourself updated, right? So sometimes that can seem like a deterrent, but if you see the rewards at the end of the day, and I said earlier, right, that impact that you're making in terms of solving those hard problems, right, and making an impact to the business, once people start seeing that, it's a high that you get, and that's what kind of keeps you motivated and spurs you on. And for this to happen, I feel honestly that we need to start thinking about it at a very, today a lot of companies are doing things like encouraging women to be in the STEM careers, right? However, for the girls themselves, to feel motivated, to take this up as a career. I feel like, for example, the computer games we have, if they're all, about violence and shooting and, they're not going to be excited about it, right? So, look at the ripple effect. If you have more women in technology, I'm sure we will be designing a lot more games that are, more inclusive and a lot, more interesting for girls to also, want to feel excited about it, right? And I think, Navya, when I was talking to you, I was, mentioning that some of the stereotyping is happening very early. Like we, when we think about toys for girls, we are thinking about, dolls and, things like that. And when we look at what, we want to gift a boy, you'll think of some Meccano set and Lego blocks and things like that. So stereotyping is happening very early. If we can encourage, girls to also tinker and play around, with some of these things, that interest in technology will start coming in very early. So like Lalita said, at the entry level, we'll probably find, because girls are doing academically extremely well. So when you're coming out, of the colleges, you're finding that it's an equal playing ground, and a lot of women in the entry, but we have to keep them excited. And for that, we need to have those role models in the workplace. We need to have, opportunities and that environment that will encourage technology careers. And we also need to have the right training opportunities for women who are returning to work, to be able to quickly scale into what is that next thing that has happened in that 2 year that you took a break, right? If we give them the right opportunities to be able to return back comfortably, and not push them into administrative roles and other roles, while they were on a break, I think we will see a lot more women in the space. It is exciting, and I just wish we had many more women, continuing to pursue technology. And I'm sure they will not regret a day of it, if I have to look at my, peers in the space.
Absolutely. I can't agree with you more. I'd like to say thanks to my mom who forced me to play with Legos instead of dolls. I think that does make a big impact.
Yes.
Anita, you mentioned that a lot of your role models were teachers growing up, right? A lot of your family members. So what was it about technology that made you interested in it?
Okay, so I had a very interesting, person. So my father was a scientist, and I had school. I didn't have school on Saturdays, and my mom was teaching, and she had to go into work on Saturdays. So I used to go with my father to his workplace, and I actually started working on programming from the 8th grade. Okay, so I grew up in an environment that was very technology oriented, and I wrote my first 8085 program probably when I was in the 8th grade, and this is what got me interested in computer science and programming. And I didn't at that point in time think of this as a career, but when I did computer science in my bachelor's, I had the option of physics and mathematics as well. But then I thought, programming was way easier than, going into theoretical physics. So I chose this as a career, and haven't looked back since.
How important do you think it was for you to be exposed at an early age to this field?
I think it was very important. Okay, because it really gave me an edge, because I could, talk about things that others in my peer group hadn't done. I was able to match up to anybody else, in my class when it came to programming or developing algorithms. There were times where, I was ahead. And this gave me a lot of confidence, to continue, because if, I wasn't ahead at that point in time, I probably would have, stepped back and looked at something else.
So Navya,
That's a very interesting point.
Yeah, I just wanted to add in a point here. Like, I think Anita's story is fantastic that you got exposed to that early, right? But I have a completely contrasting journey. I basically did my engineering in electronics, and learning all the theoretical physics and silicon stuff that you spoke about. And we had at that time no programming of computer science related stuff except the microprocessor programming in our curriculum. But I got interested about programming after the engineering. So my first inspiration came from the classes that I took in Unix and C in an institute. And then I worked in a startup where there was a team lead who kind of, guided me, mentored me into programming. And I saw the magic of how a few lines of code written in C, created stuff, right? So that, although I finished engineering and started off later, I think better late than never. I think one can get that inspiration and direction at any time, I think.
Absolutely. And I think it's great to hear those different perspectives, right? That it's never too early and it's never too late to be exposed to this field and the possibilities that it offers. Sita, I wanted to ask you a question about, when you are looking for talent to hire at your company or looking for people to join your team, right? What are those aspects that you look for? We talked a little bit about drive, but what are the technical aspects that you look for in terms of when you are hiring for your team?
I think one of the things that we've been very trying to be what we say gender neutral is we set up some tests. So everybody has to take the same thing. So you're evaluating them on the technical knowledge, their logistics, their thinking power, their creative power. So we kind of put this together so that we would try to remove some of the biases that came into hiring. Because however we may want to say it's gender bias, or it could be regional bias. Also, we've seen, people from a particular region want to have more people from their region. They kind of, so we found that very early. I saw some of that. So we kind of try to put a very standardized methodology for people to be tested on. And then, of course, they had to go through the interview process, which was more geared instead of a one-on-one, it was more of a group interview, so that the questions and the answers would be evaluated, and you give them scoring, and that goes to a central place, and then from there you take it. So it's trying to make it more, like I said, no matter who comes in through the door, you're a lady or you're a gentleman, or you're going to have the same opportunity to get that position.
I've noticed a lot of change recently in the interview space in particular, as we try to be more inclusive in hiring and trying to diversify the teams that we create. And one of the things that I've noticed is a shift towards hiring in versus screening out, right? Where we're really looking for if you are capable of doing the role versus what do you have special that no one else has, right? Because the reality I think that we're all seeing now in the space is if you are able to do the technical requirements of your job, it's actually valuable for you to bring in a new perspective that we've never heard before, that you can bring to the table. Amita, like you were saying about having women involved in creating video games, or having them involved in how these advertising algorithms are created, or how these targeting algorithms are created. It makes a difference to have those different voices in the room, right?
Yes.
And so I'm really excited to see those changes happening in the interview space, more towards, less human bias, hopefully, and more just, are you capable of doing this job?
Right.
Yeah, I totally agree with Sita when she said it's gender neutral kind of assessment, right? That honestly the industry is going through. But one other newer dimension that we are looking for in the hiring process is how easily is the person able to embrace change, because things are changing so rapidly. What is their ability to embrace change? What is their resiliency? So we mostly, we try to look for that, because things are very, very dynamic, especially post-pandemic. A lot of dynamic changes is happening in the industry and outside industry. So I think that's one ability that we definitely look for.
Absolutely.
I think, learnability is key. So, we, in my current company, we do a Revelian assessment just to, assess the learnability of a person. And we believe that, if they score high in that, then, they can sustain, in an environment that is ever changing, and in an environment where they need to keep learning new technologies and adapting.
Absolutely. I think all of you have mentioned, right, that ability to adapt and stay up to date with current technologies. This industry does change so fast. I remember when I started working, I was working on device storage, which within 2 years of me starting my career became obsolete, right? We only use the cloud now. So I want to go back to Amita, what you were saying, where you were encouraging women who want to stay in technical roles to keep learning. What advice do you have for how they can do that, especially as we are juggling all of these different responsibilities?
Yeah, I think one very important thing I feel for women to do is to really introspect and find their sense of purpose, becomes extremely important, because once you find that, then, we as the leaders in that, if I find that sense of purpose, I can help in deepening that, I can help in encouraging that. And, I can help, when I say I'm representing, all of us who are in those positions today of influence, to be able to nurture and help them, to move to that next level, right? But for that, I have to find that, in that person. And then, we can, support them in terms of making sure that we, get them the right opportunities, the right mentorship, the right sponsorship, to be able to advance and progress. But that interest has to come from deeply within each person. So while we say that, society has a role to play, while we say that companies have a role to play, technology companies, especially, helping, set up the right conducive environment, the management support, parity, and everything else that we talk about, I feel that fundamentally, every single person has to believe in herself, that, and have that strong, will to do it. And if they can do that, then I think, we will have that opportunity to, get them up. So for that, for a technology role, while everyone talked about the things that they look for hiring, I look for that aspect of continuous learning, and I also look for the thing that where are the fundamentals. You talked about that storage and, what it has moved to. But, Navya, the fact is in technology, right, the fundamentals, once they are strong, every advancement is building on the previous advancement. If you're talking about cloud today, once upon a time we're talking about grid computing and we were talking about something else. Today, if you're talking about microservices architecture, there was a time when we were saying services oriented architecture. Another time we were talking about bringing modularity in our systems. So I look for strong fundamentals. After that, it can be taught, right? This is the flavor of the season. Tomorrow, something else. We all have to have that. So I believe that, I put a lot of onus on that individual as well, because sometimes, women, I don't like, and I try to get people to come out of the victim syndrome, So if you have that sense of purpose, if you want to do it, then you will find a way. So find your support system, find your, way forward in terms of how you want to do it. And staying abreast with technology, I advise people to just, make sure that, you are subscribed to the most, the relevant journals, for example. If podcast works for you, then make it a point to listen to something relevant, from a technology standpoint, once a day, 30 minutes a day, you'll get to know what's happening, read. For some people, reading works. For me, reading works. For somebody else, listening to somebody works. Today, you have innumerable YouTube, videos that will, in a nutshell, tell you what is happening, right? So there are so many mechanisms today, but I believe, it starts with the individual, and, and once we find that spark in that person, we can really, take them to the next level. As companies, we provide the training opportunities to keep people constantly updated. At Red Hat, we have very defined programs where, people can aspire, move. We have clearly defined technology paths as well. So women don't have to decide, if I want to advance in my career, do you think becoming a manager is the next best thing? No, you can become a principal architect, you can become chief architect, a distinguished architect, and you can be an individual contributor forever, and, still, make an impact and still be a leader, right? What matters is the influence, how strategically you think, and then how deeply, you can get into some of those areas. So not a single answer, Navya, but I think giving them the right training opportunities, but then I believe that that sense of purpose has to come from each person of wanting to, do it.
Absolutely. I think that the point you made about fundamentals and being able to build on that is so spot on. in my time as a teacher, I can't tell you how many students came to me and said, which programming languages should I learn? And I would say, just learn one really well. You can learn the other ones later, right? Yeah, so that's a great point. You also mentioned a little bit, that networking and mentorship aspect. And one of the challenges that often women face is that all of the mentors are men, right? Because they're the ones that are out there in these positions. And I think the challenge is twofold. One is that a lot of times, when approaching this aspect of mentorship, we want somebody who's had a similar experience to us. And so a lot of times, either women will seek or they will be assumed to be seeking another woman to mentor them. And then the opposite is also true, right? Mentors want to mentor someone who they see is going through the same experiences that they are familiar with. And so oftentimes, I think men in mentorship roles don't feel like they have that experience to talk to the issues that women are facing. So Sita, what advice do you have for women who are looking for mentorship in this space, and how can they avoid falling into those traps?
It's a very interesting question and a very weighted question, because there aren't many women to provide that mentorship, as we say. And sometimes I feel some women who would have done very well kind of fall out of the crack because they don't have a good mentor, or they've had a bad experience with the men around them, or they've been put down in some ways or talked down to. And they don't know how and where to go. Even HR is generally run by men, very few women are in there also. So they kind of lack that place. So there are lots of outside companies that are now starting to provide mentorship. So if you don't have enough within, there are lots of organizations, NGOs that are starting to come up that are focusing on mentorship for women, by women, so that we can encourage them along the path. And I think mentorship is at different levels, Navya. It starts all the way when you're at the entry level, mid-level, senior level, and then there is a much higher executive level which is the most complex mentorship, I would say, in nowadays, because we have very few people at that level. But at every level, the mentorship means different, and it means different for them as they go through life experience, being single and out there, being married, being kids, going through a bad marriage or good marriage, whichever way it may be, or relocating. So, mentorship technology is one part, but life mentorship is also very important. And that is where you see that challenge that you're talking about, that men are not always able to mentor you. And also now, we talk about gender neutrality, but you also have women who are like coming out and, wanting to be themselves. And how do you work with them also in this industry? They're much smaller, but you want to be able to be neutral across it. And sometimes I've had men come to me and saying, you always favor women. I'm like, no, I'm not favoring. It's like there are very few of us, so we need to mentor them more. I've been playing for that a little bit, but it's finding, the leaders that will help you mentor.
Yeah, definitely. I think very, very well said, Sita. Navya, if I may add a few.
Absolutely.
Yeah. In my experience, one can always enhance their network. People come with this thing like, some people have a very big one and I don't have. And, there's some 3 principles that I learned, which I wanted to share here about how one can diagnose their network and enhance it, right? So these 3 principles one is a self-similarity principle. And then next is proximity principle. And third one is a shared activity principle. Normally, we tend to form our networks based on these 3, I think, at a very broad level. Like someone who's like me or who thinks like me or has gone through a life like me, I tend to go and reach out to them to be a mentor, right? If someone is close to me in the same locality or apartment, then that's a proximity angle. Shared activities like, hey, I like yoga, you like yoga, let's get together. I think it helps, and it's nothing to say this is right or wrong, but I think it helps time to time to diagnose which principle are we more relying on, more leaning on, and then make a shift, right? It helps to get somebody who's not like you so that you get a diverse thought, right? And then and start off a new activity so that you get connected with a new person instead of the same set of people. So those are just few thoughts that I wanted to share.
And I just want
Absolutely.
to add that sometimes, networking, and in my own mind, in the early years of my career, it had a kind of a negative connotation in my mind. I thought of networking is that I need to hang around and be one of the boys club, after work. And, those things I thought was networking, until I found, that it doesn't have to mean that. Because, as a person, for example, I was very reticent, not a very extrovertish kind of person who would want to go and reach out to people, right? Then I found that, networking could mean like this. I have now, got to, a few wonderful, women in the same industry. And, there are many other such forums that, like Grace Hopper Women in Computing, that happens as an annual event across the world. There's so many opportunities to network, meet like-minded people, meet others who are, in the same situation, solving the same problems. And, you can really create your own support groups and stuff like that as you go forward, right? And so that's something I think women have to understand, that networking does not necessarily mean, catching up on a smoking break, or, sometimes you feel excluded when you don't, engage in some of those activities that maybe, men are more used to, right? But networking, creating those peer networks, support groups and stuff like that, I have found works extremely well. And finding the right mentors. Many of my mentors have been men, and sometimes they can give you very, very effective advice, and they can be in positions sometimes to sponsor you for the next opportunity. They see, that capability, that they can, then position you for the next role, right? So men can be allies as well.
Yeah, no, I think I agree with Amita there. Men can be allies, and and I think as women, we should look for capable mentors, irrespective of whether they're women, men, or women, and somebody who we can align with, and who would give us directions. And another thing that's important is that you should aspire for a role that a person is at, or where you want to be at, and it should not be associated to a man or a woman who is up there. Okay, it should be what you want to do, and you need to be willing to do everything to get there.
Absolutely. These are all really great points. And I think what I'm hearing also from this conversation is you don't have to be restricted to one mentor, right? You can have a network of mentors who help you with all of these different aspects. Lalita, like you were saying, there's those different aspects of similarities that we look for, and also differences, right? So not restricting yourself to, I have to find the one person who's the perfect role model for me and does everything that I want to do, right? Because that person probably isn't out there. So building that network of people who are going to help you with each aspect of that, people who have common interests, common goals, people who you respect, who you admire, and people who are going to help you, right? Because the critical part of mentorship is not just that you're friends, but that they're willing to help you in your career journey, right? So these are all really great points. And I think also it's great to hear you all talk about having male mentors as well, because I think that is an important perspective to bring in, and not be hesitant to ask for mentorship from a man just because you're afraid, or that you have that imposter syndrome. I want to talk a little bit about one more topic, and I think this one is very relevant to now, because we are in this mode of a lot of remote work happening, a lot of global remote work happening. And I want to talk a little bit about the factors that we've mentioned, of having these responsibilities outside of work and how those impact your career goals. Now that we're doing work inside of our homes, right, during this pandemic, during this remote work period, how has that impacted the opportunities for women? And Anita, I want to start with asking you this question of do you think overall women have been helped or hurt by this shift to remote work?
I think, this has been very contextual. When, in 2000, last year, when all of us were, put into working with homes, what really happened was that everybody got a level playing field. Okay, so for women, who couldn't stay late at work, they suddenly had the opportunity to, work from home, and which meant that they didn't have to travel. So, there was this time that they spent traveling, which they could now, put into the workplace. Again, a lot of jobs, especially in consulting, involve travel to a client location. And now, we have this opportunity to deliver everything remote. Okay. So, which meant that, doing well in your job didn't mean that, you had to stay late in office, or, you had to travel to work, 5 days a week, or travel out of the city. So this helped women in that aspect, okay, because it gave you the opportunity without, doing all of this to still, deliver at work. Okay, but the other thing that also has happened is that naturally women tend to take on more responsibility in the house. Okay, so a child is crying, they usually go running to the mother. Okay, and if you have to lay out food at the dining table, women usually tend to do that. So being at home meant that you were around, and the children would keep coming to the women, and they had to work double shifts, so also manage the house as well as manage work. But if you're able to manage that situation, you still went out and got help to be able to do this, just like you would if you go into work. Okay, then you were able to manage this and balance things out. So I think it has been a huge enabler and a huge opportunity now, but it all depended on how you embrace the situation.
Absolutely.
Okay? And another strength that I think women that I've worked with bring to the table is the ability to communicate, okay, without being face to face. So I think, on a conference call or a webinar like this, women are more mindful, they're more inclusive, they're more expressive, and, get this communication going, which is very important for us to be able to work remote. And I think that's one advantage that women have in this environment here.
That's a great point. Yeah. Lalita, as we are in this period of maybe shifting back to some kind of either in-person or maybe a hybrid type of work, what do you see as the biggest opportunities and the biggest challenges for women as that shift starts to happen?
Yeah, I think definitely it looks like it, at least to me, that world is shifting towards a hybrid workforce, work environment where people are going to be in office for a few days a week and few days at home. I think the biggest opportunity there is the flexibility, right? So we've kind of got used, many of us have got used to certain things being done at home because we assume that we are always going to be at home. And I think that is an opportunity that will still continue as we go into the hybrid. I think that definitely we have to leverage that flexibility and then see how we can use that to balance our life better. But at the same time, when we are saying being in office, use the time for more face-to-face interaction, build relationships. I think it's not just for women. I think one of the things which has got seriously impacted working from home is to sustain the relationships already built at office or build new relationships. I think getting back into office, even those 2 days, 3 days in that hybrid environment is going to be a big enabler for that. And I think we have to use that opportunity to collaborate and build relationships. How many ever virtual meetings you do, I think that there is a certain charm about meeting face to face, right? And then building the relationship. It always helps to meet the person first face to face, and then you can have n number of virtual meetings. Right. So as we get into that, I think one thing would say is that, of course, keep the flexibility, but use the opportunity to collaborate and build relationships better.
Absolutely. Sita, what do you think companies can do to help this transition and make it smoother for people who are navigating many different types of commitments outside of work and many different lifestyles outside of work?
Be sympathetic to start with, to understand the situations we are in. So I think companies in general are going to see a shift in this hybrid world or complete virtual. It really appears that some of them are going to go full virtual from what I'm seeing out there. there has been a, there has to still be a support system that's going to be set up. Because even if you're working from home, your challenges do not go away as men and women with managing the kids or managing the cooking or the cleaning, or, the internet has gone and power has gone, or, Wi-Fi is not working, because those are the new challenges you're going to have working from home. So companies can really help by seeing how they can look at the situation the person is in. Now, remember, all the people that ended up going virtual did not stay in Bangalore or Delhi or, the main hubs. They went to towns or smaller places also to be with their family, to get that support system. So the companies truly have to start thinking slightly differently on how do we get them the equipment to keep them all connected virtually? How do we create more virtual meetings or create an environment where, even though they're working virtually, we're still inclusive? So whether it's a morning, hey, let's have coffee, or, cheers in the evening, or let's do a little dance or a jig, whatever it may be. So they need to think, more broader and differently. And I think that is one of the challenges our entire industry, world, as a matter of fact, is going through, to try and figure out how do we deal, COVID has really made us think, in a way, slow down, because you're more home and you can work longer hours. Sometimes what happens, companies have to be more careful, because it's, at least I find, you're working longer hours because, you're not traveling anymore, and you're kind of expected to always be there. So you got to bring back that sanity, to say, hey, do the hours. Just working longer hours is not the right way. It's being productive in the hours that you are working, and whether you now, also the hours are getting differentiated. For example, some people we find will say, can we work 4 hours, take a 2-hour break in the day and come back for 4 hours, So instead of doing a continuous 8 hours, they're doing a 4-2-4, because they want that break to take care of the kids or whatever they need to do, So it is literally an HR level also rethinking the way we're going to be managing and working with them and get the productivity you're looking for them to.
Absolutely. I think I've been very inspired to see how many different ways people are tackling this pandemic and working from home. I feel like I have the easiest possible setup, and it's still been such a challenge. So it's really amazing to see, how everybody is navigating all of these different challenges, all of these different setups that they have, all of the different responsibilities that they have. We're all in a constant juggling game, right? Of all of the things that we're accountable for.
Very true.
So I know we are, I'm going to think this is the 5-minute warning.
I think it is. Sandhya's up there, so definitely.
I did give, you do have 2 minutes more, Navya.
Oh, 2 minutes. Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
I guess I'll just take these 2 minutes to say, I think we've gotten some incredible advice from these extremely accomplished women on this panel. The themes that I heard are really all about confidence and drive, right? Where if you have the self-confidence and you have the drive to push past these things, these challenges that you may encounter as a woman trying to make it in this industry, that's all it takes, right? Everything else is secondary to that. And you can always ask for help. You can always seek those networks and those mentors who are there to help you. But really, it's about you looking internally and finding it within yourself that this is what you want to do. So I think I'll leave everyone with that message. And I'll also encourage everyone to please look at all of the speakers' bios on the platform. They're all doing incredible work. Please look at if you want to connect with any of us on LinkedIn. I'll say that I will connect. I won't offer anybody else's connections up, but I think these are all incredible people on this panel. So I'm very honored to be here with all of you.
Thank you, Navya.
Thank you, Navya.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much. Just to reiterate what Navya said, it was such a wonderful session and very inspiring, different perspectives. To me, it was this and that, not this or that. That was the final thing. I would encourage you all to also listen to other sessions, we have very good speakers, excellent industry experts, excellent sessions. So please do explore those. I have the privilege of announcing the prestigious Women Economic Forum Award that is being conferred on the speakers. So on Navya Prakash, we have the Exceptional Leader of Excellence Award being conferred by the Women Economic Forum. Thank you so much. We are happy to announce the Exceptional Leader of Excellence Award for Anita George. Anita, thank you so much for coming. Amita Roy, again, the Exceptional Leader of Excellence from the annual Women Economic Forum. Thank you once again for being here. Sita Kapoor, again, once again, I'm glad you are here. We confer the award of Exceptional Leader of Excellence. And Lata JS, thanks so much. Again, once again, I'm Exceptional Leader of Excellence Award being conferred on you by the Women Economic Forum. Thank you all so much. And Sita and Navya, especially because it's rather late out there in the US. I'm really honored that you accepted and connected and came here today with us today. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank
Thank
you.
you all.
Pleasure.
Yeah. Have a good day, good evening.
Good evening, good
Thank you.
night, and have a good day. Please do join the other sessions, whatever possible. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.